Welcome to Shadows and Gods, where forgotten forces, primordial fears, and ancient powers rise from the deepest layers of myth. This is where creation is never gentle, order is never permanent, and the universe itself remembers the wars that shaped it. Today, we're going back before gods had thrones, before laws had names, to the first and most violent conflict of all, the moment reality itself was carved out of nothing. In that first unwritten chapter of existence, there was only one principle, one state of being: chaos. Imagine it not as a malevolent force, but as a churning, endless, limitless abyss of pure, raw potential. But what happens when something new, something completely alien, awakens in that timeless void? What happens when a single quiet thought arises in the middle of an infinite, screaming storm? This is the story of the first war in all of existence. It is not a war of flesh and steel, but a war of ideas. A conflict for the very soul of reality. This is the story of the universe's first and greatest battle, the war between the ancient formless entity of chaos and the brand new nascent consciousness of order. A battle that would violently and beautifully carve out the cosmos as we know it. In the beginning, there was no beginning. That's a term for clocks and calendars. And in this age, there were neither. There was no light, so there could be no dark. There was no up, so there could be no down. There was only chaos. The ancient Greeks, in their attempts to fathom this, didn't picture a raging demon. They pictured a chaos, a term that simply means a gaping void, a chasm. It was a space waiting to be filled. The Roman poet Ovid, trying to wrap words around the inconceivable, described it as a rude and undeveloped potential, a shapeless, disorganized heap where the seeds of every element in the universe were smashed together in a sleeping, jumbled, inert mess. It was everything that would ever be, and yet it was absolutely nothing at all at once. It was a library containing every book ever written, but all the pages were blank. From this primordial dreaming soup, the first flickers of being began to stir and separate, not because of some grand intelligent plan, but simply because in a state of infinite possibility, even separation is a possibility. And so out of the singular nature of chaos came Erebus, the profound embodiment of darkness, and his sister Nyx, the very personification of night itself. They weren't children in the way we understand, with parents and a home. They were the first distinctions, the first lines drawn in an otherwise uniform canvas of nothing. They were the first adjectives in a language that until then had no words. Nyx, in her deep, quiet existence, gave birth to her own brood of concepts, dark forces like Thanatos, or death and Polemos, the spirit of war. But these weren't malicious beings. They were like specters of thought, drifting aimlessly through the void, phantoms of potential, without any real purpose or drive. They simply the square for an eternity that our minds cannot measure. This was the absolute state of everything. Chaos didn't rule like a king on a throne. It didn't issue commands or pass judgment. It was the fundamental, the condition of existence itself. It was the universe dreaming of itself, a stormy, limitless sea of possibility with no shore in sight. Everything that could ever exist, every star, every planet, every living creature was packed tightly inside it. But nothing legion was yet. It was a kingdom of pure, untamed, magnificent, and utterly undirected power. And for a time it was peaceful. But deep, deep inside that infinite roaring storm of what could be, something new and impossible began to happen. Like a single perfect crystal forming slowly in a vat of murky churning liquid, a new consciousness began to coalesce. It wasn't born of violence or ambition. It was simply a thought, a quiet, persistent idea that was the absolute antithesis of everything chaos represented. This was the awakening of order, This was not a god born of thunder and lightning and celestial might. It was a concept, a principle, slowly, patiently, waking up in an endless roaring void of pure noise. It was the quiet, internal whisper of what if. It was the dawning realization that the jumbled, screaming mess of chaos could be organized, that the cacophony could become a symphony. This new consciousness looked upon the shapeless heap that Ovid described, and where chaos saw only the beauty of infinite freedom, order saw the potential for structure. It saw the velvet, uniform blackness of Erebus and Nyx, and for the first time, it imagined its opposite light. Drawing on modern mythological inspirations, like DC Comics' Lords of Order, we can understand this entity better. This new consciousness wasn't good in a moral or ethical sense, and chaos wasn't evil. Those are concepts for mortals. No, order was simply its entire being. Its every motivation was laser-focused on a single goal: to create patterns, to establish rules, to build, to define. While chaos was a state of passive vicha being, a formless, sleepy existence, order was a state of active vicha being. It was the architect arriving for the first time at a quarry that contained an infinite supply of raw, uncut stone. It looked at all that glorious, untamed chaos, and with a vision that had never before existed, it saw a cosmos just waiting to be born. This silent, internal awakening was the single most cataclysmic event since the beginning of everything, because for the first time, it introduced a second, rival force into the universe. The stage wasn't just set for creation anymore. It was now set for war. Order's first move wasn't a declaration of war or a challenge. It was simply to begin its work. It was a cosmic craftsman, and its tools were the very principles it was made of: logic, pattern, sequence, and reason. It reached into the swirling, incoherent mess of chaos and began to gently, deliberately pull the elements apart. It located the abstract Vitsenda idea of light, which was just a dormant potential, and gave it a form, a purpose. And in doing so, it sparked the very first proto-stars, introducing the first pinpricks of brilliance into the unending night. It gathered the floating, aimless motes of matter and began to spin them, teaching them to dance in a predictable, elegant rhythm. This was the birth of the rule we now call gravity. It created the first repeating pattern, the first celestial beat, the quiet tick-tock of a cosmic clock that would one day blossom into the relentless river we call time. To the ancient, slumbering consciousness of chaos, this was a horrifying, painful, and unprovoked attack. You have to see it from chaos's point of view. For eons, it had existed in a state of perfect, limitless freedom. Now this upstart idea was taking its very essence and locking it away. Every single act of creation was to chaos an act of destruction. Every rule order established was a cage, limiting the infinite, beautiful potential of what could be. Every star that was forged was a piece of its own formless self, ripped away, isolated, and locked into a stiff, predictable, and dreadfully boring pattern of existence. The very concept of a cosmos, a place of beauty and order, was a profound insult to the glorious, perfect anarchy that had existed forever. And so chaos, which had slept for eons as a passive, dreaming state, was finally, viscerally, stirred into a conscious and incandescent rage. Its first children, the raw and untamed forces of nature like night and darkness, rose up to defend their parent, their very source of being. This was not a rebellion driven by prophecy or a hunger for power, like the Greek myths of Uranus and Cronus, where children overthrew their father. This was a far more basic, primal, existential reaction. The war was not just inevitable, it was a definitional necessity. Chaos was infinite, unfocused, limitless power. Order was focused, structured, and deliberate will. It could not and would not coexist. Their war wasn't for a golden throne or control of a mountain. It was a war for the very definition of reality itself. The war that erupted across the blank canvas of existence wasn't fought with swords and shields, but with the fundamental forces of creation and uncreation. The armies of chaos were like the original titans of myth, monstrosities of raw elemental power, untamed nature given a horrifying, semi-sentient form. They were walking storms, living voids, beings of pure entropy. They hurled waves of unmaking energy, cosmic tsunamis designed not to kill, but to bust and dissolve everything order built, to melt it all back into the warm, comfortable, formless soup of the primordial state. But order was never about brute force. Its power was in its intellect, its strategy, and its profound ability to build, so to combat the overwhelming and infinite power of chaos. Order empowered its own allies, and much like how Zeus freed the Cyclopes and the hundred-handed Hecatonchires to aid him in his war, Order sought out its own master craftsmen. These new beings weren't just forces of mindless power, but forces of Isit intelligent crafta. The Cyclopes of this cosmic war were the grand forgers of physical law. They were born in the hearts of the first stellar nurseries, and with the universe as their anvil, they hammered out the unshakable rules of fusion and fission. They were the ones who created the thunderbolts of this war, supernovas, brilliant explosions that would not only destroy the agents of chaos, but would also seed the cosmos with the heavier elements needed for future creation. The Hecatonchires of this age were the fabled mountain throwers, but on a cosmic, unimaginable scale. They were the masters of gravity, the first gravitational engineers. They could reach out with their 100 invisible hands, grab entire swirling clouds of dust and gas, and fling entire nebulae across the void, not as weapons, but as building blocks for the first galaxies. Order's greatest weapon, its ultimate strategy, was never destructive. It was creative. It forged the laws of physics, the equations of mathematics that would govern reality, and the very arrow of time itself. Chaos fought with what Daichpan was, the infinite, static present. Order fought with what Daichpan could be, the structured, unfolding future. The war raged for what the new, sputtering clock of time would one day measure as 10,000 years, but it was an age that didn't yet flow properly. It was a war fought in the dream time, and the entire universe was the battlefield. As the Greek poet Hesiod described in the Titanomachy, the war between the gods and titans, the very fabric of existence itself groaned, buckled, and tore under the unimaginable strain. Entire galaxies, freshly and painstakingly built by Order's celestial architects, were unraveled by screaming waves of chaotic energy. Their stars scattered, and their structures dissolved back into nothing, black holes. The ultimate physical expression of chaotic hunger and infinite density were weaponized. They were aimed like cannonballs at newborn star systems, swallowing light, matter, and Order's nascent laws without a trace. The sky, which had only just become a canvas for Order's beautiful new lights, now burned with the fires of a war that would define everything. It was the ultimate philosophical clash, made real intelligence versus brute force, elegant design versus pure, unadulterated chance. The armies of chaos were effectively endless, because chaos was the endless void from which they sprang. But Order's armies were strategic. They were clever. They used the very laws they had just created as both their shields and their weapons. They learned to bend space to create defensive pockets. They aimed focused beams of the new light to drive back the shadows of Erebus. Most brilliantly, they wove the tapestry of cause and effect, creating strategic traps where a chaotic entity's own destructive energy would trigger a chain reaction, leading to its own containment. It became a war of cosmic attrition. For every galaxy that chaos managed to dissolve, Order's Hecatonchires would patiently gather the scraps and build two more. For every star chaos snuffed out, Order's cyclopean forges would find a way to ignite 1,000 more in a chain reaction of creation. Victory, Order realized, would not go to the most powerful, but to the most creative, the most resilient, and the most patient. Order's greatest strategic move was turning chaos's own infinite nature against it, constantly using the raw material of the abyss to build the very structures that would hem it in. In the final reckoning, Order did not, and in fact, could not, destroy chaos. To do so would have been the ultimate folly. Destroying chaos would mean destroying the raw, infinite potential from which all things are made. It would be like an author burning his library to ensure no bad books are written. The potential for creation would be gone forever. So Order, in its ultimate act of wisdom, didn't seek to kill its rival. It sought to contain it. Order won by building the ultimate, inescapable prison, echoing Zeus's eventual victory over the Titans. The great, formless forces of chaos were not wiped out of existence. They were merely defeated, rounded up, and contained. Order wove the fundamental laws of physics, gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces, into a lattice, a cosmic cage we now call the known universe. Chaos was forced down, squeezed into the gaps between things. It was pushed into the unpredictable, fizzing quantum foam that lies beneath our stable reality. It was imprisoned in the raging, uncontrollable hearts of dying stars, and it was locked away forever in the crushing, inescapable centers of black holes. Chaos was cast into the dark abyss of this new reality's Tartarus. It became the basement of existence, the unpredictable, geothermal energy source upon which the stable, well-lit house of the cosmos was carefully built. With the Great War finally over, a stillness fell over creation. The new rulers, the principles of order, divided up the newly formed cosmos. The principle of light was given dominion over the electromagnetic spectrum. The principle of matter and energy were given their domains, governed by E = T squared. And the principle of time was given its flow, forever moving forward. This was the new hierarchy, not of whimsical gods on a mountain, but of the unshakable, fundamental constants that govern everything everywhere. The long, dreaming, formless age of chaos was over. The age of the cosmos, the age of order, had finally and triumphantly begun. The first war of the universe was the ultimate generational conflict, a battle that fundamentally shifted the nature of existence from one of raw, untamed power to a reality with rules, structure, and consequence. It was a victory for intelligence, for design, and for logic over the sheer indomitable force of the abyss. But let's be clear, chaos wasn't destroyed. It was just pushed down. It's still here, a vital, if dangerous, undercurrent to our reality. It is the source of all randomness, all genetic mutation, all evolution, and everything beautifully unexpected. The universe we inhabit is one of magnificent, breathtakingly elegant order, but it's an order that is built upon a foundation of infinite, untamed chaos. The war is over, but as the ancient Greeks knew with their later tales of giants, monsters, and meddling gods, the struggle for balance is eternal. Chaos might have lost that first great war, but the potential for another one is always slumbering deep in the heart of everything, waiting for its chance to once again become all that there is.